Hello, I'd like to welcome you to Ideas with Diana. On today's show, there's been a schedule change. The show will be on Mondays at 1 p.m. on WIPZ 101.5 FM. For today's show, I'd like to discuss in the first segment some things that occurred over the winter. Today is the first day of classes at UW Parkside. I'm an alumnus in 1987, pre-med in applied computer science, breadth of knowledge in art and history, graduate degrees at University of Phoenix MBA and doctoral ABD. In today's segment though, I'd like to talk about the National Women's March that occurred during the winter. What I thought was significant about the National Women's March is that Hallie and Natalie Portman both expressed views which really express what people who go through domestic abuse feel. Primarily, as what Hallie's poem started out with, it was first basically someone trying to be very calm and rational about what happens, but realizing near the middle of the poem that there are a lot of emotions when a person does realize that they just can't rationalize what has happened to them. And it did show about actually how people who have gone through domestic abuse actually feel inside, because they wonder if people are listening, they wonder if people are caring, they wonder if people are believing them, because sometimes that's a big part of the battle is even though it happens, it does. People don't want to believe, other people want to deny it, or people will sort of support the other person saying, well, they're rainmakers, so they bring a lot of money to the firm, so we'll let this go, and that really shouldn't be the criterion for someone to be allowed to do domestic abuse. And in the speech given by Natalie Portman, what I was really surprised about was I worked in the Silicon Valley in the 80s, mostly telecommuting, and also in La Jolla in the 90s telecommuting as well, but more so around Phoenix in the western states for various meetings. However, Natalie Portman's speech, she brought out something where basically where certain comments were said that I was really aghast at, about how even on certain public airways what was said, because I would have thought even by the late 70s that basically that on public airways many people speaking had graduated from high school, or and basically in those who were older basically still had the maturity to realize not to engage in that type of comments, basically, because it's something when someone does gives admiration to someone, but it's another thing when someone actually says comments that actually make a person that make a person feel less of a person, and especially at a very young age. So I'm glad with the National Women's March that in the Me Too movement, as well as the Time's Up movement, that this message is finally getting out, because we need to get it out, because it's not a case where one generation says, well, we're too old to change and this is how it's always been done, and no, that's not really the case. The thing is, like with equal rights, when the equal rights law was passed, it wasn't a case where another generation said, well, we're not ready to support the equal rights law. It was the law, it's done. And it's the same thing with Me Too and Time's Up. Those who are still trying to deny that what people said in Me Too, it's time, sorry, your time is up. You had plenty of time to read the memo. You received the memo many decades ago. even in the Midwest in the 90s, when the first woman CEO appeared in Milwaukee in the 1990s, even Milwaukee got with the program. So there's no more excuses. Another thing I'd like to comment on is last night's Grammys. Last night there was Lady Gaga, Rihanna, and other performers. I did not get a chance to watch all of it because I was helping a friend in need who to get settled. But when I did finish, we were able to watch the last hour of the Grammys. One thing I did like about one of the performances that I was able to see was that by Logic, Khalid, and Alicia Cara of the song 800-273-8255, which is the phone number for the National Suicide Hotline, about basically keeping your spirit up and keeping your self-worth, and also choosing life. Because this is important, because many people do go through stress. Many people do get pushed. Many people do have people try to push them down, make them feel less of themselves, and it's sometimes even push them too far. And that's why I'm glad this song came up. And the other thing is, rap is a good genre, because when rap is really addressing what a person feels and what they are actually thinking, it does move, as was shown last night at the Grammys when Khalid, Alicia Cara, and the Logic song of 800-273-8255. With another aspect in regard to this, one thing like many transgender people go through is, just like there's a National Suicide Hotline, there's also a transgender support group, which is called You Are Not Alone, which is actually letter U, letter R, not alone.com. And the basis of this group is that people who are transgender can find a safe place to talk with others, a safe place to meet with others, chat, get help, and also get referrals for medical services as well. A physical place is like the Center on Halsted, and which is basically right by Wrigley Field. It's about 2 blocks east of Wrigley Field, and it works together with Whole Foods as part of having the Center of their education, arts in Chicago. In Milwaukee, there's Milwaukee LGBT, which is on the MATC campus, and that is by right near Red Arrow Park, which in downtown Milwaukee, which is about Wells Street and Water. In Kenosha, we've seen the Southeastern Wisconsin LGBT, which is on Junction Avenue in Uptown Racine. And there are different buses you can take to get there. The thing is, the Grammys, National Women's March, is an expression of creativity. And also it's expression of activism. I mean, yes, that there are certain things that we do discuss, and that we shouldn't always have to agree with everyone to be part of a group. We should have disagreements to move a group forward, and because when everyone agrees, then what happens? You're getting into things as what people call groupthink, or other things like that, and it's not conducive. Like I myself, there's certain things I support, and there are friends that I know that see it from a different perspective. But yet, we see that there's a common problem, but we just see it from different perspectives. And the reason why that is important, though, is because if you see things from one perspective, or just in groupthink, basically, what you have is two-dimensional thinking. You have just this surface here. There's you just see things two-dimensionally. That's just there and there, and that's it. Now, when you have multiple perspectives, what happens? You actually have three dimensions. You can actually say that this is not just a plane, but it's actually a notebook with pages. And the advantage of perspective is that in seeing things from different perspectives is that we can solve problems. And however, where perspectives become an issue is when basically when it comes to not really solving the problem, but blaming a group. Like someone will say, well, oh, we can't do this because this group won't work with us on this. So we can't do this because this group won't work with us on this. If this sounds like the government shutdown, yeah, it is. And other things that happen. Luckily, during this government shutdown process, there were moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats that met, while the other two groups were playing for the airwaves as to who could get the most media time. The moderate group on both parties sat together and actually worked together to figure out a solution, and also make sure that everyone got back pay who was laid off during this government shutdown. The thing is, moderate solutions are not always the best, but however, when it comes to cases like the government shutdown, sometimes the extremism on both sides of both parties can be too much, because it comes down to basically who gets the airtime, who gets the 15 minutes of fame, who gets the glory points. And the problem's not solved. It's basically finger pointing. Why won't they? I can't do this because they won't do that, or we can't do this because they won't do this. And the thing is, the finger pointing doesn't solve the problem. I mean, what is the problem? What needs to be solved? And it's not. And finger pointing detracts from solving the problem. That is the reason why. Like in the Grammys, there's creative expression, there's activism. Also, when we watch the Grammys, it's not our genre. I mean, there's rap, rock, R&B, soul. There's many other forms of music. And the thing is, something that many people may not know, or maybe hopefully they do know, is that when all the artists who are performing live on the show practice for dress rehearsal, each group of artists that are performing on the show, they sit in the audience and watch the dress rehearsal, not because they're required to, but because they want to, because basically it's showing support for everyone who's on there, in appreciation for their form of expression. Just because someone likes country doesn't mean that someone won't support someone who does rock or rap. It is a matter of supporting different ideas, and that's what I do like about music, and that's the reason why I was glad I was able to start out with musically or at an early age. The thing to consider though is, in the next segment I'd like to talk about the idea of creative expression. Let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at Ideas with Diana, and the new time for Ideas with Diana on WIPZ 101.5 is at 1 p.m. Central Time.